Is it pretty constant, the need?
Yeah, I think we're going to get into a data discussion here later, but there is data sharing that's happening now, and really want to be able to roll a lot of this into our existing efforts that you're going to hear about in a few minutes. But I think that for me, the biggest issue has been the acknowledgement of trauma with these youth and really having good trauma intervention and trauma-focused treatment. And I think that's what's really been lacking with a lot of these youth. And so it's hard for me to say that there's an increase because I don't know that we've identified appropriately the fact that what trauma plays in these young people's lives. And we are really working hard to do that now.
Then I know in bigger counties like the County of Riverside, we have our own mental health department. Do other counties that contract out for those mental health services that we have to deal with?
Yes, yes.
Does that provide challenges for you?
And what the challenge there is because the billing has to run through the mental health plan for those mental health services. If it's a provider that is not on contract, it does cause some, and that's part of what we're trying to all work out.
Okay, thank you.
On page 10 of the agenda, question number 4 with regard to the statistics that you collect and keep. Could you respond to that question?
There was with the former Department of Mental Health and DSS looking at the claims data. Since the transition from the former Department of Mental Health to DHCS, we have not obtained placement information, but we're working through all of that through other efforts, and there has been, we're going to talk about some of the data coming up and the efforts that we've made together in making sure that we can share the data in the future. So we don't have any statistics currently, but that is our goal in the future.
Okay. How about we, it's the same group that'll be talking about the psychotropic medications, correct, at the table? Or will you have different folks?
It'll be no, we have one additional person that will come up for the psychotropic, but we wanted to do KDA first.
Okay, I thought since you'd referenced it that you'd kind of did it all together. Okay, so KDA.
Okay, so Dina's going to take KDA.
Madam Chair and Senator, Dina Cocos-Gonzalez with the Department of Health Care Services. And the question was asked to briefly describe the KDA settlement agreement and what has changed since court jurisdiction of the settlement agreement has ended. And just briefly, the KDA settlement agreement was designed to transform the way California's children receive mental health services that they're entitled to, and the way that the systems work together, child welfare and mental health at the county level and at the state level. The transformation is being accomplished across the state through the adoption of a core practice model and a couple of arrays of services that are a new way of providing services, specialty mental health services, including the provision of intensive care coordination and intensive home-based services and therapeutic foster care to children who meet eligibility criteria of the subclass. So the agreement called for court jurisdiction for 36 months after the court approved the agreement. And as such, court jurisdiction formally ended on December 1, 2014. But I do want to be clear, when we talk about court jurisdiction ending December 1, the activities of KDA, the deliverables, the things that we're required to do, and the transformation, and it continues strongly.
That's the whole point of the lawsuit, for it to be institutionalized. Right.
So since jurisdiction has ended, the state continues to work very closely, the two departments together, so California Department of Social Services and the Department of Health Care Services. And we continue to work very closely with the mental health plans and the child welfare departments to make sure that we are meeting all the requirements and deliverables of the settlement agreement. And of late, since the ending of jurisdiction, there has been a great focus on our shared management structure, and including establishing a community team and continuing the executive team between the two departments. We also have a lot of regular communication with the former plaintiffs. We did a lot of good work together, and they have always good recommendations and ideas, and we don't want to lose the momentum of our communications and work together, so we have regular communications. The committee also asked, how are we supporting counties? Oh, I'm sorry, let me pause there and ask social services if they'd like to add. How are we supporting counties as they continue to build their infrastructure and increase service deliverables? We have been working very closely with the counties and establishing performance goals specific to each county and clearly establishing expectations for counties to meet in increasing the delivery of services. The KDA settlement wasn't just about increasing the delivery of services. It's about the way the system, about how we deliver the services, and that we're very closely collaborating between the two systems. So we have had ongoing targeted contacts with the counties. We first started with the phase of working with the largest counties and the lower performing counties, and then have since worked through talking and having contact with each county, and some, on multiple occasions, to come up with a plan to identify any challenges, barriers, and work with them within their infrastructure. And by the end of June, we'll have accomplished talking to all 58 counties. And then moving forward, we will be having regularly scheduled calls with each county to monitor their progress and follow up with them and see what type of assistance we can provide. And when I say we, I mean the Department of Social Services and the Department of Healthcare Services as a team together are reaching out. And when I say reaching out to the counties, I mean to both the child welfare side and the mental health plan side, so that we're doing this collaboration and not in silos.
Great.
We, the state, continue to host biweekly technical calls, which is for the counties, and all stakeholders are welcome, including providers and advocates and anybody who's interested in participating. And then in addition to the biweekly technical assistance calls, we continue to provide trainings and technical assistance through webinars, statewide learning collaboratives, publishing FAQs, responses to FAQs. We'll be revising our manual shortly and just really providing some clear guidance to the counties. And then we'll continue to monitor on an ongoing basis the infrastructure and making sure that the claiming is happening and that the service delivery is as it should be. And again, the substantial culture and systemic change that's required as a result of this settlement will continue to take place and won't happen overnight, but will continue within the next months and years to just continue the momentum.
Greg Rose with the Department of Social Services. I think Dina's overview was comprehensive. I just add a couple of comments. One is, when you think about the training that Dina mentioned, we have both departments have kind of successfully leveraged our existing kind of training infrastructure and integrated KDA into the regular and ongoing curricula that's used. So it's not just, we've had many standalone trainings around how to team and special things for small counties and different kinds of working more collaboratively with members of the community and parents, et cetera. But we have integrated much of these kinds of trainings into the ongoing curriculum for ongoing training for the on the child welfare workers and for mental health workers. And then I would just say one other thing, we are finalizing our protocols for some of our on-county site visits. So in addition to the contacts that we've been having via telephone and webinars and other kinds of things, we think that there's much to learn by deploying some staff to look to talk with counties on the ground and stakeholders on the ground to really better understand what's working and what's not working. And then as we've mentioned in the past, the guidance that we've issued through both departments on jointly signed letters, we would anticipate over time to continue to provide additional guidance and support to counties through that vehicle as well.
Any questions? Senator Stone.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Comment and just a brief question. It sounds like to me that in the absence of the court's jurisdiction, the department has done very well in kind of carrying on the theme that necessitated the lawsuit. I'm happy to hear about the shared management structure and the strong coordination with the counties. Can you just elaborate a little bit more on the regularity of data collection and reporting process, just to make sure that we're compliant? I feel very comfortable what I've heard here today, that we're moving in the right direction.
This is Greg Rose again from the Department of Social Services. So we, as part of the implementation plan, we had collected some county implementation plans with some metrics in it. What we will do on a moving forward basis is we will match a number of databases that are some housed at Department of Social Services and other at the Department of Mental Health, and use those as part of our shared management structure to better understand what's happening on the ground and then adjust policies therefore. So likely we would be looking at data minimally twice a year, potentially quarterly, depending on some of the nuances of it.
But is this a mandate on local government counties to provide this information, or is this something we're going to have to kind of extract from them on a periodic basis?
So initially, the reports were provided to us by county staff on a template form. We think that moving forward, just using our administrative data, we can get much of the same information. Clearly, we will have to vet that information with counties, have discussions with them about it before we try to interpret it, here in Sacramento. But we think we can accomplish much of what we need to by using administrative data.
Okay, and you believe you have the cooperation of the counties to participate in giving us that information without, pulling teeth?
Well, with the original reports, counties did provide information on a regular basis. A few we did have to ask some questions about, getting a little bit more detail. But these administrative databases are already tools that counties use. So that's claiming databases, our case management system databases, potentially databases that involve medication and other things. So we would have kind of claims data and case management data, and that will be our plan for now. And then I think earlier in the agenda you heard about the EPSDT performance outcome system, and I think when that's fully developed, that would really play a keen role in this work as well.
Excellent, thank you.
Finance? Nothing? LAO? Any public comment on out-of-county placements, KDA, Child Welfare and Mental Health Coordination and Monitoring?
Carol Schroeder, Madam Chair, with the California Alliance of Child and Family Services. Let me just say first, kudos on the KDA work. On the out-of-county, I just wanted to reiterate, my organization has been working on this issue for 25 years, even before the advent of EPSDT. And I was really pleased to see it taken up by the Child Welfare Council because we think it has enormous opportunity there for solution. It's been an intractable problem. Who is responsible for assessing, authorizing, and providing mental health services to foster kids who are placed outside their counties of jurisdiction varies enormously depending on where and with whom the child is living. Depends on which county they're living in. It depends on the relationship between counties. We attempted in 2008 in co-sponsoring SB 785 that was authored by Senator Steinberg at that time to address the administrative barriers. I'd love to tell you that it was an outstanding success. It wasn't. And so we're back again, both supporting what the departments are doing, but also we are co-sponsoring this time with the Steinberg Institute AB 1299, Mr. Ridley Thomas's bill, which we hope offers a solution to this problem as well.
Thank you very much. Any other members of the public want to share on these two issues? Thank you. Seeing none, we'll move to item number 3, oversight, psychotropic medications. We're on page 13 of the agenda.
Great. Pete Chervenka, Department of Social Services again. Thanks. Again, your agenda has laid this out. It describes ongoing work that's been in progress for a number of years now on this topic. And we're pleased that in the last year there's been a significant amount of progress made on the topic. The Child Welfare Council has also been heavily involved in the last year and had lots of conversation and updates as well. We have a robust expert panel group in our quality improvement project. I'll call that QIP from now. Our expert panel has over 60 members, ranging from prescribing physicians to the youth themselves on the group. And they've been meeting regularly quarterly and approving a lot of work up to this point. As your agenda describes on page 13, there are three work groups. And if I can briefly, question 1 kind of asked what are some of the work products that have been done, so I'll go ahead and take the opportunity here. In the clinical work group, there's been a lot of discussion about what the appropriate use of psychotropic medication is. The goal of this group is to improve the safe use of psychotropic medication. And we've taken a look at models from a variety of jurisdictions over appropriate prescribing guidelines. Age of child, dosages, number of concurrent prescriptions that may be at issue, and looked at it both from the prescriber perspective as to what may be an appropriate prescriber practice, but also in California, the judicial system, the court has to authorize the use of psychotropic medication. So providing information to judges about those things as well, how many, should a kid under 5 have anything, those kinds of things, what dosage, how many concurrent uses, et cetera. So healthcare services is taking a look at that issue. It's not just an issue for foster youth, but the global Medi-Cal population. So after approval at the expert panel meeting at the end of February for the QIP, the department has taken that under submission. I don't want to talk for them about the status of their process, but I think we're very close to having prescriber guidelines approved and issued. We also are continuing, as I mentioned, to work with Judicial Council on getting that information into the hands of judges, training them on what it means, how to use it, how to be aware of it. So those are the primary work products from the clinical work group. On the data and technology work group, in anticipation of some of the data sharing that I'll talk about in a minute, they've been doing a lot of work here. We took healthcare services prescriber claiming information, matched it with the child welfare system, did an analysis and produced a significant amount of work and publicly released a 10-page report and have made that available back in December to legislative staff and many others. Looking at demographics of how they're used, looking at various placement type data and how it's used and those kinds of things, age of child. We cut and sliced that in a number of ways, and it gave us a really good grasp. The other thing this group has been doing is looking at, I've lost my train of thought. The other thing they've been doing is looking, as we plan ahead for future data matches, they've been working to design what those reports will look like so that when we give information to counties, it's in a usable format that's consistent and usable, to repeat myself. And then in the youth, family, and education work group, we've had a significant involvement with youth in this group, which is really great. There are a couple things this group has produced. The first is a foster youth mental health bill of rights. describing to youth what they have a right to expect under state and federal law and the manner in which it's most likely to be received by them or provided to them. That's about 4 pages with a whole bunch of supporting information attached to it. But it's written in the youth voice so that it's usable to them. It's broken into, and then there's a questions to ask document that accompanies that, that's broken into 4 sections to make youth and caregivers, enable them to be more informed participants in the care. It's broken into 4 parts: questions to ask your doctor, questions to ask the judge, question to ask your social worker, and questions to ask your pharmacist. And again, written in the youth-friendly voice, reviewed and approved by the youth themselves. We've asked the Child Welfare Council and the folks on that council who have list servers and connections with youth and start disseminating this information and get it into the hands of people so they can use it. So really phenomenal progress.
Is there an overall distribution plan?
And they are working on a distribution plan. That was the subject of last month's March meeting of this subgroup as well. In addition to working on the dissemination plan more formally, they've also moved on to a wellness workbook for youth as well that covers a variety of topics related to this issue. Again, written to be used by youth and their caregivers. So really positive developments on that front as well. The next item listed here was a global data sharing agreement. We're happy to tell you that that agreement has been signed between the Department of Healthcare Services and the Department of Social Services. Global is a really wonderful term to be using here. If I can pause for a minute, lots of staff in both departments spent a great deal of effort putting a great deal of time and energy into this. Every time we have a data exchange need, we've always had to do a separate memorandum of understanding to do that. And as things go in government, that's often a long, tortured, complicated process. What this agreement does is allow the 2 departments to exchange information, all health information relevant to foster youth, back and forth between the 2 departments without the need to develop a separate agreement anytime that need arises.